Ja, hallo und herzlich willkommen zum nächsten Beitrag. Hier geht es um das Thema Qobuz, um die Streaming-Plattform, um den Streaming-Dienst-Anbieter. Wir haben die Mareile Heineke, ihres Zeichens Country Manager für den Bereich Deutschland, und den David Solomon, seines Zeichens Vizepräsident der Geschäftsentwicklung für den Bereich USA, für ein Interview gewinnen können. Die beiden interviewen sich gegenseitig im Prinzip und stellen die Plattform vor. Und ja, vielleicht vorab für diejenigen unter euch, die noch überhaupt nichts mit Qobuz anfangen können und das noch nicht einordnen können. Ich habe da auf netzwelt.de eine Definition in Anführungsstrichen gefunden, die bringt es eigentlich grundsätzlich auf den Punkt, was Qobuz anbetrifft. Und die schreiben, Qobuz ist für Musikliebhaber, die bewusst hören und bewusst genießen, genau das Richtige. Und sie schreiben auch, dass Qobuz jetzt keine klangkomprimierten oder vergünstigten Tarife anbietet, aber dass sie das auch halt grundsätzlich von Mitbewerbern dann unterscheidet. Aber darauf werden eben die beiden dann auch noch im Detail eingehen. Vielleicht vorab auch noch so ein paar Hardfacts zu der Streaming-Plattform, die euch vielleicht interessieren. Derzeit werden über 80 Millionen Songs in CD-Qualität angeboten, über 185.000 Alben in Studioqualität stehen zur Verfügung. Es ist Musikmagazin und Kaufberatung in einem. Ihr findet dort einen Download-Store für Musik und gesprochene Inhalte. Umfassende Informationen zu Künstlern und Alben werden bereitgestellt und tausende digitale Booklets. Wie gesagt, auf all das werden die beiden aber nochmal eingehen. Das ist einfach nur, um euch vorab, für diejenigen, die sich mit Qobuz überhaupt noch nicht auseinandergesetzt haben, mal so grundsätzlich eine Idee davon zu geben. Und damit ihr euch aber grundsätzlich mal einen Eindruck von Qobuz verschaffen könnt, haben die uns freundlicherweise für alle Teilnehmer der Convention, also nicht nur für die, die jetzt zugucken, sondern für alle Teilnehmer der Convention ein 3-Monats-Abo kostenlos zur Verfügung gestellt. Ihr bekommt also nach der Convention in dem Newsletter im Nachgang einen Zugangscode zu Qobuz, mit dem ihr euch dann im Prinzip für 3 Monate kostenlos ein Abo sichern könnt. Und wie im Vorfeld der Messe schon angekündigt, darf sich ein Teilnehmer der Convention auf ein Jahresabo freuen. Das wird dann im Prinzip nach der Convention direkt verlost und gleich nächste Woche dann auch bekannt gegeben, wer der glückliche Gewinner ist. So, jetzt aber zu dem Interview, was die beiden miteinander geführt haben. Was erwartet euch da? Die gehen auf die Geschichte von Qobuz ein. Die gehen ein bisschen darauf ein, was überhaupt die Voraussetzung dafür ist, um High-Res-Content auch genießen zu können. Also, dass man halt auch entsprechendes Equipment braucht, um eben die Dinge auch entsprechend wiedergeben zu können und die Unterschiede auch zu hören. Es ist auch interessant, ihnen zuzuhören, wie sie so ein bisschen grundsätzlich über den Musikkonsum philosophieren, also wie sie darüber sprechen, wie sich halt die analoge Welt so ein bisschen verschmelzt mit der Welt des Streamings. Sie gehen auch darauf ein oder sie legen auch dar, wie sie den Trend Dolby Atmos sehen, beziehungsweise das neue Apple-Angebot Spatial Audio. Interessant war auch, wie sie einen Vergleich anstellen, dass sie Apple eher als Football-Player sehen und Qobuz als Tennisspieler. Was es damit auf sich hat, da dürft ihr auch mal gespannt sein, was sich dahinter verbirgt. Und natürlich nehmen sie uns bzw. alle Teilnehmer der Convention dann auch mit auf eine Qobuz-Tour und stellen die Seite im Detail vor, zeigen euch, wie ihr Playlists erstellen könnt, wie Qobuz auf verschiedene Genres eingeht und Vorschläge je nach Hörerverhalten macht und so weiter und so fort. Also eine sehr interessante Geschichte, und in dem Sinne wünsche ich euch viel Spaß bei dem Beitrag von Qobuz.
So I'm just going to start introducing us quickly. So my name is Mareile Heineke. I'm responsible for the German-speaking markets of Qobuz, and today I'm having a little chat with my American colleague David Solomon, who's working for our US team. And David is not only responsible for the business development activities for Qobuz US, but also a big expert when it comes to high fidelity audio. So David, it's been 3 years now, if I'm not mistaken, that you've been working for Qobuz, and maybe you can give us some information about you, what you did before, if you actually had known Qobuz before joining, and how you eventually joined Qobuz 3 years ago.
I did know. Thanks. First off, thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure working for Qobuz, and our American and European teams have got so much synergy between the two. It's just a lot of fun working with you guys. So thanks for having us. And
same here.
Yeah, I guess so. It's been a little over 3. It's been about almost 4 now. that I've been working for Qobuz. The first little while we weren't even open, and nobody knew Qobuz. It was so much fun just to listen to people try to say the name.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the first time we were at a show. It was the CEDIA show, and this was about 6 months before we had launched. And you would walk around and hear conversations with people going, "It's Qobuz," and the other guy would go, "No, it's Qobuz," and the other guy's going, "No, it's Qobuz." And I mean, you would have people literally sitting there for 5 minutes, trying to decide what it was called. So I knew at that point, I'm going, this is going to be really cool, because people aren't saying our brand name one time. They're saying our brand name like 15 times, just trying to figure it out. But yeah, nobody really had heard about Qobuz when we entered the market, at least nobody that wasn't firmly entrenched in the audiophile world. Those of us that were sort of entrenched in streaming and in the really high end, we had mostly all heard of it. But if you take all of those people together, it's really just kind of a small handful of people knew who Qobuz was. And in 3 short years, we have become quite famous in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now it's really hard to find people that don't know who Qobuz is. What's still common is people still don't know how to say it, or a lot of people still don't know how to say it.
In Germany, it's the same problem.
Yeah. So at any rate, it's been a really good ride, and the quality of Qobuz has really helped carry us a long way, because we really started in the audiophile world. That's just the most natural thing that we could do, because of course we're streaming the highest quality music that you can get. A lot of these recordings were recordings that prior to Qobuz, personally, I was buying for, $50, $60, sometimes $80 for a recording, just one of our high res recordings. So when Qobuz came around, and it's like everything available is now in high res, or the more expensive files that we used to buy.
Yeah.
I literally have to pinch myself every time I open up Qobuz and go, wow, I can't believe we got the new whatever Pink Floyd and the whole collection, like in high resolution. This is something a few years ago that I would have gone, okay, let's see, how am I going to be able to afford these 7 albums that are now in high resolution that I love so much? So
yeah. So you would consider yourself a real audiophile, right? So it was a personal interest, a personal urge for you to start working for Qobuz, basically, from what I understand.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I had actually worked for Tidal prior to working for Qobuz. I actually helped launch Tidal in the United States. And I was really excited about that, because that was the first, full bit service or full 1644 service available in the United States. So I was really quite excited to work for those guys. But then when Qobuz came around, and Qobuz was the first company that was doing true high resolution, I wanted to work for this company, and made contact with the company and told them about my background and said, look, I want to come to work for you guys. I am the perfect person for this job, because my background really led me right to Qobuz door.
Yeah. So basically, when did you give up listening to MP3 music yourself? Or does it even happen sometimes nowadays that you...
The only time I really ever listened to MP3 was when it was playing in the background. Someone else had it playing.
Okay.
I did my stint with some of the MP3 services, especially when I started realizing that this is going to go to full resolution. And I started getting like super excited. I honestly never even paid much attention to it, because the sound quality was just not really what I wanted to listen to. But when, let's see, I think it was a company, they're no longer in business, but it was a company called MOG, Music on the Go. Do you remember those guys?
No, actually I don't.
They started streaming 320 kilobits per second, probably 2011, 2012, something like that.
Yeah.
And I owned a company called Peachtree Audio. Well, we had made these integrated amplifiers it's the first integrated amplifier ever to have digital inputs on it.
Yeah.
So we were really ready for this. We had thought about where is the industry going and what's going to happen. And we did realize that everything was turning digital, and there was only really one relevant analog source, which was vinyl, which I still do. I love vinyl. Yeah. But there were just, not many analog service sources available, but every single one of the manufacturers had nothing but analog inputs. So just going I looked at my partner and I'm going, what are they going to plug into those inputs? There aren't 7 analog inputs. Let's make an amplifier that's got all the right digital inputs, because that's what people are using. They're using streamers and TVs and CD player. Everything they were using was digital. So we came up with this amplifier that had nothing but digital inputs on it with only one analog input. Because we knew it was going to end up going this way, especially when I started getting into this company called Moog. I listened to it and I'm going, wow, for the first time, I'm listening to a compressed music that I'm going, it's not so bad that I can't stand it in the car. It was okay in the car. It was fine. But the music selection was quite good. And I started realizing there was a trend that was happening, because if you looked at the way things were going, we started out streaming, I think XM in Sirius radio, right? That's still got a huge audience, but the quality is so bad. The speed is so slow that for me, it's even hard to listen to voices when people are speaking, because you can hear that sort of swishy sort of sound in their voices. I can listen to voices on stuff like that, but when it comes to music, it's just absolutely horrible. So we kind of had a baseline of XM, which was horrible. It's like, where's it going from there? Well, heck, this was into like the late, I think maybe mid 80s or so, mid to late 80s. And I just didn't pay any attention to it because it was just so bad. And then companies like Apple started coming out, and they were out at 256. Pandora was at 192. And then Mod comes out at 320. And we're going, you know what? This doesn't sound bad. And then an epiphany hit. It was like, okay, if we've gone from 64 to 128 to 192 to 320,
we can go further.
This is going to go to 1644 at some point, and possibly further than that. And of course it did. And then now, all of us that are serious about listening to music, true music lovers, I don't want to say that. I want to say people that not only love music, but love the sound of music.
But
that's really what we have, right?
Once you have this understanding, once you have this epiphany, I can tell for myself, you cannot go back anymore. Before, I was fine with MP3, but once I heard the difference, now for me, it's very hard to take, basically, when I hear it now. But I know from our users, not really the people who are already our users, but let's say people who are interested or potential users, sometimes they're concerned, they're worrying about the bandwidth. Would the bandwidth be sufficient? Or also would the high-res audio sound demand very costly devices? They don't know about all of this. So what would be your advice for them? Do you think high-res audio is accessible or should be accessible for almost everybody nowadays?
Depending. Qobuz is a high-end source, right? We're non-adaptive. So unlike a Netflix, when you're watching Netflix, if your kid is in the next room playing Fortnite and the internet goes down, the speed of the internet goes down, so does the quality of Netflix. It basically follows the quality of the signal being given. That's an adaptive mode. So they may start off in 4K, but they may end up at some points in the movie going very low resolution and then back to 4K. Our minds don't really catch this we're really into the movie, and we don't really notice typically that we don't have quite the resolution that we had a few minutes ago, or that it pops back. That's called adaptive, and so Qobuz is not adaptive. Qobuz is a straightforward bit perfect music system. So it is important to have a very good network. I typically tell people, if you got a large house and you're using like a Comcast or an AT&T router, and you're trying to get 24/192 in your other room, there's a good chance it's not going to happen. So I always tell people, treat Qobuz like a high-end source, because it is. The very best thing that you can possibly do is have hardwired connections, because you are dealing with big files. And if you're anything like me, I cannot stand when a file starts skipping, or it just stops and plays the next track, because there's not enough bandwidth there. So I have learned that I've just went ahead and wired almost every part of my house hardwired. That's the number one way you could do it. The number two way you could do it is there's these really, really good wireless mesh networks these days. I just got one called the Eero Pro 6. I think it's from Amazon. And I wired like 4 of these throughout my house, because I've been telling people just that. Don't even try it if you're not wired. I mean, really, it's gonna at some point disappoint you. So I ended up getting this system, and I'm going, okay, can I stream high res? And so with every room in my house, I went and tested it, and wow, I could not believe it. I was actually streaming full high res. So I would say, if you're getting Qobuz, make sure you got a great connection. If you can wire it, if you can't wire it, make sure your wireless system is second to none. It's just got to be a really good wireless system. It's just like people are buying these anywhere from $1,000 to $100,000 preamplifiers or integrated amplifiers.
Yeah.
You want to treat Qobuz like you treat something like that. You would never run wireless speakers off that, right? You could never get the performance. So I would say, if you're listening to Spotify, go for it. You can be wireless all day long.
Yeah.
If you're listening to Qobuz, you can as well, because we do have a choice of the streaming quality that we can send out. So frequently when I'm in the car and I'm on a long road trip, I'll set our streams to 320 kilobits per second, which is like Spotify, and I never, ever drop out unless the signal just completely drops out. It's really hard to drop out from there. That's sort of one way you can do it. Another way you can do it, and I do this all the time too, is I probably got 500-600 songs on my, or I'm sorry, 500 or 600 albums on my phone. So if I end up going to a rural area that I can't get anything, I'll just have like a whole bunch of my favorite music downloaded in there, so I can still listen to it in high res.
Yeah, I do the same when I'm in the plane, for example, and there's just no network at all. Yeah, that's a good tip. So you were actually speaking of vinyls before, and I think it's very interesting. Myself, I'm still, or again, actually buying vinyls a lot. And I think especially with Qobuz, there's not so much of a competition between digital streaming or download purchasing and vinyls on the other hand. And I can see that a lot of our users are actually, just like the two of us, doing both. I think we have a very good way at Qobuz of combining this physical aspect of the music with the actually digital outcome, not only when it comes to the sound, but also like for the fact, for example, that we provide with digital booklets that you can look through just as much as you have a CD or vinyl before you. Would you see it the same, or what do you think of this?
Yeah, I do. How do you buy vinyl these days? I remember a long time ago, we would buy vinyl just because we liked the band. You would go in and you would go, oh, the new Gitchy Gumi album is out. I can't wait to get it. And then you get home and you hear like one song that you like off the new Gitchy Gumi album, and you're going, crud. So what we've got now is we've got a whole lot of people that are actually listening to the album because it's available before they go out and buy it. I mean, I know that that's what I do. I just ordered the new Tears for Fears album and on vinyl, because I want to hear what it sounds like. But before I did that, because vinyl is expensive these days.
That is true, yeah.
So before I did that, I listened to the whole album on Qobuz, and not only did I love the album, but it sounds fantastic on Qobuz. It's in high resolution, and as soon as I finished listening to the album the first time, I'm going, okay, bye, and now I'm getting the vinyl sent to me. I think you use these technologies in conjunction with one another. They're not either or, right? That's crazy. If you only listen to vinyl, then you're only listening to music in one place in your life. Are you kidding me? I can't listen. I can't.
You need a very big living room also to stock all the vinyls.
Yeah. I mean, they're I don't even think about storage because it's just so nice to have them. But I really don't want to buy anything anymore without at least hearing the music. Had the Tears for Fears album only had, one song that I liked on the whole thing, I probably would not have bought it. And then I also just listened to David Chesky's new album on Qobuz, which is in 2448, and it just sounds absolutely wonderful. Well, Dave's also got at Chesky a headphone mix and a surround mix, and so I'm buying both of those from him just because I got to hear this awesome thing on Qobuz. So it's a great discovery mechanism. It's a great place to use as a springboard to go, I can't remember if I like that album. Let me play it again. And then you buy it, then you listen to it, and you call Music Direct or some of these guys that sell vinyl and order the thing that you heard that you love. So I look at these as just, they're the same. We're sisters. There's no which is better, which is worse. That I'll leave that to the audiophile forums. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I also think that the Discover page of Qobuz that changes every Friday looks a bit like a vinyl store because you have the great selection of the new releases coming out, and you have actually a large selection to see at a first glance right away. And that reminds me of the good old days with the vinyl stores, because unfortunately, at least in Germany, where I come from, there are less and less. There are still the big chains, but the independent record stores, they are not so numerous anymore.
It's the same here. Some of them are going away, but some of them are doing really, really well.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on the every Friday thing, because this has happened forever, right? I mean, music is released on a certain day, and then record stores would end up getting it. But I would end up going to the record stores and I would get 2 or maybe 3 albums, right? If it was a huge week, I might get 5, but that was kind of the limit. You hop on Qobuz and you look at the new releases and you start seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of releases. It's very much like drinking from a fire hydrant. It's so much information. No one would ever be able to amass that kind of a collection in a record store, but it does give you a record store feel, flipping through the albums and whatnot.
Yeah. Maybe we can have a quick look at Qobuz together. Just before we do so, I would like to have your opinion on the latest trends in the audio industry, basically. When we speak a lot about spatial sounds, coming from Dolby Atmos or others, how do you feel about these trends?
It's gonna happen. It's surround is a thing that a lot of people like, and in some ways, there's a lot of brilliant marketing behind the whole surround industry. Here's an interesting story. I think everybody for the last maybe 3 or 4 years has heard Apple say, oh, we're going to go high res. We're going to end up going high res. And they just keep saying it, and people keep waiting. And Apple's a very, very smart company. Apple, I would look at Apple like football players. Mm-hmm. They're big. They got pads. They will run all over you if you're not careful. Well, I look at Qobuz more like tennis players. we're more agile. We're maybe we can turn maybe a little faster. We do things just a little differently, but the way we do things is the way that we do things, and music quality is always number one. That's the only thing that we have ever focused on, right? That's got to be the number one thing. So Apple, being Apple and an absolute brilliant strategic company, they go, hey, okay, we're going to go high res. And Apple finally pulled the trigger. Wow, what big news. But that would mean that Apple is playing tennis on our court. Right, we're just better at this. I'm sorry, this is not a sideline for us. This is not just some little cherry on our pie. This is what we do. So instead of Apple continuing with that narrative, they're going, oh, we do high res, but really the conversation is really spatial. We do spatial. Now, I don't care who you are, what kind of experience you've got in audio, you can hear when things are coming from different locations. Sometimes you would find that a bit more difficult if you're listening to a set of headphones and you switch from a fairly well recorded album to that being available in high res. Sometimes people can't even tell the difference because they have to listen for these nuances and that kind of a thing. Well, Apple didn't really want to play in that field, so they started talking about surround. What makes the whole thing so brilliant is prior to Apple launching surround, they brought out their new iPod Pros. And the big headphones. I'm trying to remember what they call, but these are all spatial ready. Here's the brilliant part. They had already sold about 2.5 billion of these headphones before they announced the spatial thing. So Apple, being Apple and being totally brilliant, when they did launch spatial, they already had 250 million customers that had the right gear to actually be able to play this back. Do I like it? No, I don't. I think surround is sort of gimmicky. It's meant for people to be able to hear an absolute difference, and sometimes that difference is just not, to me, very musical. If you ever put bongos over my left shoulder, or the female singers over my right shoulder, I'm not going to be happy. That I don't want to be on stage with these people. I want to hear the original recording, because typically when you start hearing all of this surround stuff, the focus in the middle goes away. There is none. So if you once had a very tight voice in the middle of your soundstage, which it should be, that's the way you would hear it when you're on a stage, when they're on the stage, right? Instead of it being like that, all of a sudden the voice gets huge, very, very displaced, and things just sort of float into space. In many cases, I'm sure that the procedure will get much better and people will get much better mixing in this format. But for right now, to me, it's really, really gimmicky, although we'll likely hop into this technology at some point, even with Qobuz.
Of course, because we need to cater to the public in the end. But I completely feel what you say. I also prefer the pure and the original sound. Do you want to make a little tour and show us the service a bit? Maybe you can share your screen.
Sure, I'd love to. I'll pull up Qobuz.
Yeah, show the American version.
Can you? Yeah, well, sorry, that's all I've got.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Can you see this okay?
Yeah.
This is what Marielle's talking about to begin with. This is what you see when you open up the Qobuz app. And at the very top, you'll see featured artists. And this is always a fun place to go. In fact, this one, the Beethoven for 3, I just listened to this the other day, and it's absolutely wonderful. And then this is one of my favorite new releases. That's the new Tears for Fears.
Yeah, so you have a very eclectic taste in music. You listen to classical and to classic rock at the same time.
I listen to a lot of everything. Lots of jazz, lots of rock, lots of folk, lots of there's really not a lot I don't listen to outside of I don't really listen to a lot of country music or like, baroque stuff. I'm not really that into, because it makes me feel like I'm going to stick a pencil in my neck, but but yeah, I've got a very diverse taste. And this is one of the things that sort of can help you define that, as there are the genres. You'll notice that I've just got them pretty much, I don't even choose anything because I want to see what all is available. Yeah. But if you want to make this look like, just to say a classical music site, you can just pick out classical. And this is what it's going to show you. All the new releases down here that are shown, instead of being mixed genre, are going to be all classical. So if you go up here and hit see all new releases, this will be all the new classical releases that we've gotten recently. Here we go. Hold on. See all. Now check this out and pay attention to the High Res logo on here. About 80% of everything that Qobuz is getting these days is in High Res, which is really, really cool. But these are the new classical releases. And if you want to make your page look like just nothing but classical, because that's what you're a fan of, great, just pick that out in genres. But if you want it just to show everything, or let's say you want to make it look like, I can do some great tricks here. Let's say we want to make this site look like Tidal. Boom, we just hit hip hop, and now we're basically Tidal. So it gives you like any genre you want. If you want to be adagio, you're classical, and blue, there's a blues. I'm a huge blues fan, so you pick out blues, and that's all you end up hearing. This can be quite handy when you're in the mood for a specific genre. So if we take this out, we go down the page a little bit, and then we end up going to My Weekly Queue, which is a playlist that's put together for you based on your listening habits over the last little bit. So as you can see, mine is once again quite diverse, but that's a really, really neat thing. I love when they did that, Mareile.
Yeah, me too.
This is one of my favorite sections, the Qobuz playlist section. And there's a lot of subgenres here. All are just high res, new releases focus. And on the very back end here is one of my favorite sections. It's our partner section.
Yeah.
And on our partner section, we've got some of the very best brands, and some of these are from master engineers like Jim Anderson. His playlists are incredible. He just put up another one, and almost everything on his playlist, or actually I think everything on his playlist, he recorded. And so this is an incredible playlist.
Yeah.
JBL just came out with a new little speaker. And to celebrate that, they just put together a whole playlist on this new little powered speaker that they've got. But yeah, it's just completely rich with information and music that you probably, at some point you're going to find a lot of stuff that you end up liking. What do you think about this section?
But I think it's great. It's a great section that actually no other services has, if I'm not mistaken. Like the big editorial part with the articles on, we have articles on musical periods or on labels, on discographies of artists.
Yeah, and there's always different things to listen to, like grunge in 10 albums. Seriously, this is a wonderful thing to be able to go to my 18-year-old son. You want to know about grunge? Let me show it. Let's just do a little quick education. And so we can read a little bit about all of the bands. He can go to college now and go, you know what? I listened to Pearl Jam 10 and it is awesome. So it's really, and we've got this with classical and jazz, really any of the genres that you can think of. Are going to be covered in these featured articles under panoramas, Qobuz memes, but all very very much for the music, by the music, it's for the music lover, by the music lover. By the music lover,
yeah. I think that's the perfect sentence to sum everything up, basically. So Qobuz is for the music lovers and made by the music lovers. And the audio files as well.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about them. But mostly it's the same people. Most people who are audiophiles, they're also just like you and me, music lovers.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people at Qobuz are. That's one of the things when I have the privilege of going to Paris and meeting everyone. Music is always a big part of the discussion between us.
Yeah.
We've got a new fellow working for us, Mahfoud, who's very young.
Yeah.
But Mahfoud,
he loves the music from the 60s.
He comes to me and he goes, you know Marvin Gaye? And I'm going, how do you know Marvin Gaye? That's my music, and then he starts going, well, do you know Hendrix? And I'm going, well, of course I know Hendrix. This kid listens to some awesome music. I don't mean to call him a kid. He's very, very bright and a wonderful team member. But wow, what a great taste in music this guy's got.
I agree. Yeah, that's a very pleasure to work at Qobuz. I agree. Thank you so much, David, for taking the time and speaking with me. And see you soon, hopefully in Paris.
I'll be looking forward to it. Thank you very much. And
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.